Yeah, we are meeting again. It is again the fourth chapter, but we are having numericals and the revisions of the fourth chapter, because it is a very lengthy chapter and it is very important from the exam point of view as well as knowledge point of view for all engineering branches. We can have a revision and also we can have some numericals of that. But before that, we have discussed in the last lecture the topic Hall effect, right? So in Hall effect, how does it work, that we can see through the animations, and that we can see here. Actually, one of the manufacturers of the instruments, they have provided us with some of the simulation techniques, and that is here. This is actually the Hall effect that we can see. We can see the simulation over here. See, we have one semiconducting block here, and we are providing the magnetic field N and S through the poles, right? And when we provide the constant current power supply to the magnetic field to the poles, actually poles are nothing but they are the electronic coils, and due to that electronic coils, we can have the magnetic field as and when they are provided with a constant current power supply. When we switch on this, we can have say 1 ampere current through the semiconducting material, as well as through the constant current power supply the magnetic field is generated, and we can see that on the perpendicular direction we can have the thermal Hall voltage, and that shows the existence of the Hall effect. As in when we increase the constant current power supply current, the magnetic field will increase, and the Hall current, you can see that the Hall voltage that is produced, that is increased. Okay, so this is the simulation. This is how it works when the current carrying conductor is subjected to the perpendicular magnetic field. Right, we can perform several experiments using any of the Hall instrument. The first experiment objective, whenever we are setting up any of the Hall effect instrument, we should measure the magnetic field, and we should find out the poles of the magnetic field, as well as we should find out the direction of the magnetic field, and that can be found out through INAS probe, that is Indian Arsenide probe. And whenever this probe, it is actually Hall voltage measurement probe, whenever this probe is put in between two poles of the magnet, one can find out by switching on the magnetic field, one can find out the magnetic field which is generated in the Gauss and Tesla meter. Now, by providing which value of the current, we can get this much amount of magnetic field. It is actually say for example 2.5 ampere current will generate 1130 Gauss magnetic field. If I increase the current, I can see that 3 ampere current will cause the increase in the magnetic field, right? So in the observation table, we can have current as well as magnetic field in Gauss and magnetic field in Tesla. If we have the magnetic flux meter which can measure in only Gauss or in only Tesla, then we can have accordingly change in the observation table. Now we should also measure the distance between two poles, because the distance between two poles, that will be also important whenever we are measuring the magnetic field. The intensity of magnetic field, that is also dependent on the distance between two poles. This is actually current on the first column, magnetic field in Gauss in the second column, and then we can have a graph, that is the graph of magnetic field versus current. Okay, so using this, in experiment 2, we can determine the type of the direction of the magnetic field. If probe is facing left and we are getting the magnetic field positive, then this side is north, and if probe is facing right, we can have the magnetic field in negative, then that this side is south. Actually here we are already shown that this is north and this is south, but in reality whenever we are having such two coils, and we are providing a constant current power supply, we don't have any idea that which coil is acting as a north pole and which coil is acting as a south pole. So it is important to find out the poles of the electromagnets, and it is as important as well to calibrate the electromagnets, that with how much constant current we are getting how much which value of the magnetic field. Now we are ready with the setup of the magnetic field as well as the current. So now we can measure the Hall effect, we can measure the Hall voltage. We should know that we should put the probe particularly facing north pole or facing south pole. We are putting it facing north pole. Now we are providing the power supply, we are keeping the current constant, and we can have the power in the measurement unit. In the measurement unit we can have the power, say it is actually the probe current. The probe current is 5 milliampere. The current which is passing through the semiconducting probe, that is 5 milliampere, and the power supply which is used to generate the magnetic field, that is 2 ampere. What will be the Gauss meter will say? The Gauss meter reading will say that it is 1000 Gauss. Okay, so this is the setup that we are ready with. Now what is the Hall voltage? We can just toggle the key and we can see that 25 millivolt is the value of the Hall voltage that is generated. So observation table, that is probe current, magnetic field. Now what is zero field potential? Zero field potential is the offset voltage. It is the residual voltage without providing any magnetic field, and that is V0, that is minus 5 millivolt. Here Hall voltage for one side of the probe, for another side of probe facing left hand side and probe facing right hand side, that can be measured differently, and that with by subtracting this from V0 we can have two values, VH plus and VH minus, and by getting average of this V plus and V minus we can have the mean Hall voltage, right? So we have measured the Hall voltage by providing the current and by providing the magnetic field. So this is just the measurement of the Hall voltage. Cumulatively we can do one experiment here. We can find out three things from the same experiment. Whenever we are measuring the Hall voltage, we can find out the charge carrier concentration. As I said you, N is equal to Bi upon VHT into E. RH, that is Hall coefficient, it is 1 over Ne, the second equation, and the charge carrier mobility, that is mu is equal to sigma RH, and this can be found from RH, right? Using RH and the conductivity we can find out mu. Now we can also have another type of experiment, that is we have three quantities: constant current, that is the magnet that will generate the magnetic field, the probe current that will pass through the semiconducting material, and power and Hall voltage, that is the output. We can keep the power constant, say the magnetic field constant, and we can find out the Hall voltage as a function of probe current. So we can change the probe current and we can find out the Hall voltage. And so we will have an observation table which will change the probe current, magnetic field is constant throughout, and we can find out the same zero field potential VH plus VH minus at the end mean voltage. We can draw a graph of probe current, or say mean Hall voltage as a function of probe current. It is, we can see that it is almost a straight line, and with the use of this graph, with the use of the slope of this graph, we can always find out the magnetic field, we can always find out the Hall coefficient. Now we can also study in another way, that is we can use the Hall voltage, we can measure the Hall voltage as a function of the magnetic field at a constant probe current. So we can change the magnetic field here by changing the current. We can change the magnetic field, we can see the reflections here in the Gauss meter, 3 ampere, 2000 Gauss, 4 ampere, 2500 Gauss, and we can have the constant probe current at say 5 milliampere current, and we can measure the voltage accordingly. So we can have an observation table in which the magnetic field is varying but the probe current is constant, and we are measuring the corresponding Hall voltage. We can have again the mean Hall voltage versus magnetic field graph which is almost a straight line but slightly a bent straight line. But using the slope of this graph, again we can find out the RH, and we can have a very important value of RH which can be used to determine the mobility and the charge carrier concentration and the type of the material using the Hall effect. Okay, so now we can have we can move to this examples of this particular chapter. We have studied so far number of applications of the PN junction diode. Say PN junction diode, Zener diode, varactor diode we have studied, LED. Also we have studied today the solar cell, photodiode, LDR, and the last but not the least, Hall effect. In exam generally Hall effects examples are there which are asked, but also the examples which are related to varactor diode and also LED, they also ask this. So we will just continue with the numericals, and we can have one numerical which says that what is the maximum wavelength of the photon. We will have to find out the lambda max. What is the maximum wavelength of a photon which will give electron pair have in CDS, that is cadmium sulfide, having a band gap of say 2.5 eV. We are given the band gap, we are given the material CDS, and we have to find out the lambda maximum. So we have to find out the lambda critical or lambda maximum. We have studied the equation. Lambda maximum is equal to HC upon EG, right, where EG is in terms of EV, and the lambda maximum that can be derived in terms of micrometer, right. What will be the value of H? Actually H is constant, C is constant, C is the velocity of light in the vacuum, H is Planck's constant, so we can have 1.24 as a constant value, and we can just substitute this 2.5 eV, so we can get the answer as 496 nanometer, right. So we can easily have the answer. We can answer in this manner that the maximum wavelength that a cell electron pair in a CDS cell can be given by the 496 nanometer. Okay, now the next example says that it is about the LED. LED, one light emitting diode, it is made up of GaAsP, and it is having a band gap Eg of 1.9 eV, and we have to determine the wavelength lambda and the color of the radiation that is emitted. Now how can we determine the color? From the wavelength value itself we can determine the color. Now what will be the equation? It will be one and the same, Hc upon Eg. If Eg is in electron volt, then we will have 1.24 divided by Eg. What is the answer? It is actually, it can be found using this 1.24 divided by 1.9, and that is 652.6 nanometer. And can you guess what is the wavelength? This wavelength signifies which color? It signifies that the color should be red. It should be a red LED, right. Using this simple equations we can solve a number of examples. Now we are moving to a varactor diode example. Say in varactor diode or say varicap diode, the revision, if we do the revision, then we should have an idea that it is simply a PN junction diode. But in PN junction diode, at the junction there is a charge carrier concentration, and there is a whole it is actually the barrier, and that potential is known as barrier potential. This whole design, it can be taken in simile with the capacitor. So in the capacitor there are two plates, one is positively charged, another is negatively charged, and there is a dielectric in between. The same way in the PN junction diode, on one side p-type material is there, on another side n-type material is there, and in between there is a neutral region. So this can be used as a variable capacitor diode. If we measure the capacitance of this diode, then we can have the capacitance of the order of picofarad, right? And this capacitance is called transition capacitance. Say CT. CT can be given by epsilon A divided by W. Now what is epsilon? Epsilon is the permittivity, relative permittivity, A is the area, and W is the width of that particular material. Now what we are given? We are given that the material which is used here in the varactor diode is germanium. The relative permittivity of the germanium is 16. Now we are given the example I am showing you, that is, we are given that the diode has an area of 1 millimeter to 1 millimeter, and the depletion region width W, this is actually A, this is W, depletion region width is 2 micrometer. The relative permittivity of the germanium is 16, as I said you, and if we supply the equation CT is equal to EA upon W, that is permittivity into area divided by W, then what we can have? We can have the general value of the permittivity as 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12 Faraday per meter, because it is a regular value, normal value of the permittivity. We should multiply it with the relative permittivity of the germanium, and now we should have we should multiply this with the area, that is 1 mm into 1 mm, that is 10 raised to minus 3 meter into 10 raised to 3 minus 10 raised to minus 3 meter, and we can have, we should divide it with 2 micrometer, that is 2, the conversion factor 10 raised to minus 6 meter, right? This is actually the absolute permittivity and this is relative permittivity, so that we can have the permittivity of the germanium. The answer is 70.8.